Hello guys, I'm Ausra and welcome to my podcast Thinking in Sound. And today is episode number 7 and I'm going to talk about how to make organ music accessible. And what I'm meaning by it is how to compose it, that it would be accessible and well suited for the organ. I think that the main mistake that some of modern composers does is that they compose for organ, but we keep in mind piano, and actually we think that if we will compose a piano piece and add simple pedals, that it will sound good on the organ. That's not always the case. Sometimes yes, but most often it's not that case, because you should consider organ and piano being two completely different instruments, because piano has strings and hammers and organ has pipes, and it's basically a wind instrument, and piano is like a string and percussion instrument. What unites them is the keyboard, but that's about it. Everything else is different. Well, so what are the main differences and what you should avoid when composing for organ is, I would avoid fast repetitive notes, because they really sound bad on the organ, and it's really hard to perform them well, especially on the heavy tracker keyboard. That wouldn't be a problem, on the piano. Another very common, not a mistake, but let's say unfortunate situation is when people composing for organ imagine that it has sustain pedal, and that's not true, because despite that organ has like separate pedal keyboard, it does not have a sustain pedal, and it makes it hard because you have to play everything legato and connect everything with your fingers. So if you want really that your piece would be performed legato, you need to compose it like this. Because, for example, I could show you examples when there are two voices, let's say in the left hand, and quite wide intervals between those two voices. We move in the opposite directions and really are developed quite polyphonically, actually. And the style of the music suggests that you still need to play it legato, but it's almost impossible to do it unless you would have, I don't know, the 6th finger or 7th finger. So don't do that, either leave just one voice in that left hand, or, if you necessarily need to have two voices, maybe, use like third intervals instead of 6, and avoid too complicated polyphonical movement in the left hand. So that would be my advice. Another thing, if you want really to make clear for organists what you expect from him or her, you maybe need to mark what you want at the beginning of the piece or in certain spot of the piece. What the articulation should be. Do you want it to be played legato or non-legato? Or what do you have in mind? Because if we are talking about historically based performances, then everything is like self-understandable, because it's a Baroque music, when we articulate everything, and the same could still hold true for classical music. But then later for the romantic music, we started to play most of the things legato, unless it's marked differently in the score. And of course, when we come to the 20th century, where we had all these mixes of styles, and finally the 21st century, which has even more variety in styles. So just to make everyone happy, I really suggest that you would note at the beginning of your piece what you expect from the organist. Okay, now let's take a break and let me sip some water from our beautiful Secrets of Organ Playing mug. Nice mug. Okay, and another really big difference between piano and organ is that when playing organ, sound doesn't die away, as it dies away when playing piano. So take advantage of it. You can put like long notes on the right hand, not necessarily on the right hand, but basically on the left hand and in the pedals. Like organists who are looking for accessible organ music will appreciate it. If your pedal line will hold only, let's say, whole and half notes, and you will slur them, so that will make the things easy and accessible, and it will sound good. Especially that long sustained bass notes. They always sound nice. That's a big advantage of organ comparing to the piano. Again, another thing what you can compose what does not sound so well on the piano, like ground-based variations. That's my favorite, when you have like ostinato patterns repeated in the bass line. It always sounds very nice on the organ and not so much on the piano. So, and another thing, if you composing for organ, don't make too much dynamic marks such as crescendo or diminuendo. And why? Because, of course, it's good if you are playing, let's say, Hauptwerk and, like big sample sets that you have, swell pedal or crescendo pedal, then yes, of course you can do it. But thinking about mediocre organ, it often does not have a swell box at all. And, it might not even have like pistons. And what then to do, if you want to have like crescendos and diminuendos going all the time, back and forth, it just doesn't make sense. You would have to hire at least one, assistant, or maybe even two, as in our church, for example, at St. John's at the Vilnius University. So please avoid that. You could do, of course, like occasional crescendos and diminuendos, but remember that, in organ, that the terrace dynamics sounds the best, and you should think about it while composing. So I think that's all of what I have to say for today. If you want to learn something from me, please don't hesitate to ask. I appreciate your comments and your questions. This was Ausra, and I see you on my next podcast. Bye-bye.